Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I wanted to take you on a tour through the whole property. It has changed quite significantly since we bought it last year. And so, to begin, this is the last of the trash that we have to get rid of from the previous owners. It will get taken out this Thursday because Tooele has such an amazing program. They pick up trash left by the citizens of Tooele no matter what every second Thursday each month. So it's really nice. And so now you see here, this is going to be transformed before the end of the year with at least 1 to as many as 3 different raised beds. They're going to be about 4 feet apart and about 6 feet long, and they'll run in here with eventually an arbor over it. I had ordered an arbor. It was going to have a small start and it was out of stock. So they just canceled my order instead of waiting until it was in stock. It's a little frustrating, but you gotta just roll with these stocking issues that kind of have been plaguing us for several years, right? So this will all get even further transformed. This was bare, almost dead soil. It did have a decent amount of weeds in this front area, some actual, oh goodness, I can't think of the term right, tumbleweed. Some actual tumbleweed was growing here in the side yard. Kind of unusual to see, even though it is at the end here. There are no other areas where I see tumbleweed growing, and we had a decent little patch of it. And so that up there is the white spruce that we cut down, some of the birch and aspen that were cut down. And then you come into the main yard here, and this was actually much healthier looking when we purchased the property, but it turns out the previous owners were giving us a gift of having watered the yard 3 times every day. So it had completely flushed all the nutrients, and as you see, there's still these dead patches, well, dormant patches, I should say, of grass. But most of the grass has come back. This right front corner here is pretty thoroughly overtaken by weeds. Some of them I don't mind. Some of them I'll be working really dedicatedly next year to get it out. We're going to do one last round of seaweed fertilizer here probably in about 1 week, actually. The temperature should finally drop and keep the soil below about 50 degrees this next weekend. So one last round of fertilizer with the decomposed seaweed water, and then an overseeding of grass and clover here, clover over on the side yard, and then clover in the backyard. And so it's going to be nice to get that one last round down. Hopefully these areas that are still dormant or even dead on a few of them, where you don't even have dormant grass left any longer, will have enough nutrients to come back in the spring. And this is a maple. It is a beautiful tree. Unfortunately, it's having difficulty after we cut down the aspen and birch. There was a full stand, at least 15 individual trunks of aspen and birch that were cut down over here. And all of the roots were either too entwined as they were dying off, or got more aggressive as those trees were cut down, as that's one of the survival mechanisms of trees like aspen and silver birch. And so this has been heavily damaged. So it's going to have to go on top of the fact that it is a maple tree and it should have been planted more about the center of the yard, because as you can see, the branches hang over this driveway and they drip maple sap onto any cars that are here. So we lose this entire side of our driveway because it takes about 10 washes to get that maple syrup, sugar, that sap off of the car. And so unfortunately the maple has to go, both because of its health and because of the disadvantage that it uses up so much of our driveway, right? So we're gonna cut this last tree down. It's gonna be my first attempt at cutting down a tree. I don't really like cutting down trees. This is the first time I've ever actively cut trees down. I have planted trees, but never removed them. It's just unfortunate planning And so we'll get this last tree cut down. It is a hardwood, and so that's really nice because we'll use it for the Hugel Culture material along with these heaviest chunks that were left from the silver birch and the aspen. These were so heavy that we couldn't move them. We were going to originally use them in the Wally Peony, but as we're not able to do that anymore to try to get the house refinanced, which would have paid for the Wally Peony, instead we're going to totally redo everything. As I'm learning the garden consulting certification, I will need areas to bring in to show people what I've done. And so we're going to turn that into additional raised beds, probably more like 6 by 8 feet, something like that back there, at least 2. There'll be some arbors. I've already got some obelisks ordered. They should be here any time. The only trellises that came in were the 2 utilitarian trellises, not the pretty trellises that I'd ordered. So next year when there's more stock, I'll have to go out and order a few that are going to go in the main garden areas. And so, hello, let's put the dog inside. And so since we're not able to do the Wally Peony, we're going to cut these into thirds, make them much more easily moved, where we don't have to figure out how we're going to get these huge tree trunks into the backyard. I guess I shouldn't say they're huge. They're huge for a couple of adults to try to move back. It would take probably at least 4 adults to move these trunks. And so we were going to have to figure that out. Now we don't have to. We'll cut these into thirds, still add them as Hugel Culture material since they won't be posts for the Wally Peony. The same here, and with it being hardwood from this maple, it's going to really store water well. Now it'll take longer for the water to completely saturate it, but it will also hold more water and for longer periods. So it's really quite fabulous. Along with the grass seed and the clover seed, I like to come out and kick dandelions, as I call it, and feed the whole yard with the dandelions as well. A little bit of free seed. We'll be making some dandelion jelly next year and make some dandelion salads, as well as drying the more mature dandelion leaves, right? For salads and things like that, you're really looking more towards the younger dandelions. When you are going for the powder, you dry the older, more bitter leaves. All right, last of the roads from all of the tree branches from cutting it down. We were able to bring that rose of Sharon back to life from overwatering. The pipe was leaking a little bit, and when I was trying to water the side yard to see if we could get some life going over there beyond the weeds, it got this rose of Sharon way overwatered, but we were able to save it. And then as you come in here to this area, this used to be so glorious with all of the aspen and the silver birch. You can just see, we have such high winds, there's constant trash pickup, but you can see where all of these different trees were cut down and how much difference it really makes. This used to be all completely enclosed. It was like a little forest nook. And so I'd like to let the Rose of Sharon fill in the rest of this area here to give it back some of that element. And you can see where the aspen continued to try to push up, and I haven't been able to get in here and hand chop all of those aspen. Now, let's step into the backyard here. All right, and so this rose is doing so well. It still could use a little bit of love and care, but this one was always doing pretty well. They didn't butcher this one before we bought the property. This one, on the other hand, here was annihilated. You can tell they cut off almost all of this rose bush, and it has just struggled so badly, but it is coming back. You can see it was preyed on by pests because of the deplorable condition over the whole backyard, and especially for this plant in particular, how badly they butchered it. So we're going to just leave this one alone for several years as much as we can. It does kind of tend to creep out into the walkway, so we will have to do some minor trimming. But for the most part, if this rose bush is going to pull out, it's going to need time, care, and no trimming, right? That's the biggest thing, just not trimming this guy here. And so this berm does not have a swale, but you can see how successful it was bringing back more towards positive life. I don't mind the weeds that aren't either poisonous or sharp or invasive to the point that we're not going to be able to handle them. So like common mallow is just fine. I don't mind that at all. These softer weeds here, the knotweed that grows on the ground, it just produces a living mulch. And since this soil, especially past about where you were going to come out from the house here, was almost entirely dead dirt. Not soil at all, just dead dirt. And so the rest of it was not in the best of condition, but you can see how much life has been able to flourish. The birds love these sunflowers. They were volunteers, and they provide so much food for the insects and the birds. And I'm gonna have to really watch it to keep it from getting this overgrown again next year. This year it was deliberate, just pretty much allowing anything that was positive to take root. I still haven't decided if I'm going to keep this blackberry. It is invasive. I want to see how well we're able to keep up on the blackberries. I don't want the birds and things eating a lot of it to take it further. I'm not trying to spread it, but the girls did say that this was the best tasting blackberries they'd ever had, the ones from this plant. And you can see how well the clover's doing. These cosmos did finally bloom. They were really out of season. It took them a long time to bloom. And now, of course, most of them have died off, but I can see exactly where the warmest spot in the garden is, right here, where these cosmos have not completely frozen off. Continuing on into the full swale burn system back here, where all of these alyssum is just going crazy. You can see where this entire right side of the berm has been covered with clover, all the pot marigolds, some cosmos came up over here, and this is where we will have the asparagus as well as the amaranth, and that's going to actually get spread today. This is the amaranth seed from the few that made it from our last property. We took the seed there and we brought it, and I scattered it in this swale. And so I'm definitely going to leave some of these down here, perhaps kind of bend them over so that they fall actually into the swale. And I'm going to take the rest of this and spread it out over the whole swale. So it'll be next year alyssum, asparagus, amaranth, and I know I had one other, strawberries. That's what this swale will be, and it's really easy. Just spread that seed. Don't worry if some of the little clumps fall. That's just more seed in that general little area. Get it out there so that it'll be ready to go in the spring and have a much better time period to establish itself. Where we were just moving in and dealing with the yard for the first time this last year, I got the amaranth seed in late. But as you can see, we had some that were quite successful. And so next year, with it already being in the ground, this whole patch should just be filled with wonderfully smelling, visually appealing, and quite a lot of edible plant material. Strawberries, amaranth, and asparagus, all being edible. I don't believe that alyssum has any herbal or edible qualities, but I've never really checked into it. It's definitely really good for the pollinators. The earlier you get it in and the warmer your areas, you can have 3, or in the warmest areas, maybe even 4 rounds of alyssum. It will just keep reseeding itself. It's glorious. And so over here, you see the bun that actually has life. This couldn't sustain life during the heat of the season. I just kind of stopped watering this area because it just could not stay wet or even moist enough inside itself to maintain life. And this berm and swale system over here that you can even barely see any longer because the dirt from the walipini overtook it. And so we covered this up with some of the branches and things, obviously from the silver birch and the aspen, to just give it a little bit of cover while we were working towards it. And since we're going to be filling in this huge hole over here, this is where we had hoped to be building the walipini right about at this time of year. But as that's not working out for us, we're going to rent a mini excavator and just push it all back in, as well as taking some of it out for the raised beds on the side yard and 2 large raised beds on the front yard. And then we'll fill and top all of that off, this back here and all the raised beds out in the front, with better compost, manure from steer and chicken, all of those types of wonderful pieces, and make these basically 2 huge double dug garden beds with raised beds on top with even better soil. So it's just going to be a tremendous growing area. And though I regret not being able to put the walipini in, I think this works better with the timing for where our lives are right now. The visual presentation for anybody that's interested in having a garden built for them will be much more useful than a walipini. Not as much as what I would like to have, but more useful for where collectively Rewilding is as a business going into garden consulting. This is going to be very useful for that. So it's a really big silver lining on a little bit of an unfortunate setback as far as getting what we were really hoping for in this property. All right, I think that's pretty well everything, guys. So lots of mess, lots still to do, and still we have accomplished so much, and I'm so happy about where we are and where we're going. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me, everyone.